But before we go to that, let's now consider the other limit of the problem, where the thickness is basically infinitely deep. Okay, now there are two ways of doing this. One way is to directly say h is infinity and change my problem, or the other way is to go smoothly from the problem we are considering, and we'll do the latter because that's also in line with things we have done earlier in the previous lecture. Okay, so let's now consider the case of a very deep slab. Very deep slab meaning, if we had just scaled the equation like we had using the depth of the slab as a length scale, we'd get the same equation, except now we would say h square by observation d is much greater than 1, right? So this can mean two things. It can mean that h square is very large, or it could mean that the time at which we are interested in observing the system is incredibly small, right? So it could be that our system doesn't have enough time for the heat to reach all the way through the slab, or that the slab is very big. I mean, it's the same thing as far as our model is concerned. So really this is the parameter of interest, right? And if this number is large, if we go back to our equations without any deeper analysis, it would just tell us that instead of neglecting the time dependent term, I could take it to the other side and I would have to drop off diffusion, right? So it tells us that dou c by dou t, non-dimensional of course, is equal to 1 over, let's call it pi. So let's say this is pi much greater than 1. Right, and if pi is greater than 1 over pi tends to 0, and it seems to suggest that this should go to 0. But now this is a classic case of what we have already seen before, where if you try to drop off a term which has a diffusion term in it, or a second order derivative, this typically means that we should have to consider a boundary layer, right? Why? Because if I drop this term, you see that I cannot solve the system anymore because I can't apply the boundary conditions. Right? These two boundary conditions exist because I had this diffusion type behavior, mathematically speaking. So if I drop such a term, I have lost the ability to include information from the boundary condition. And such perturbations or such kind of limits are called singular limits. And it's the same thing happens with neglecting diffusion or neglecting the viscous term in the Navier-Stokes. So what this means is typically that away from the boundaries, such a thing may hold. So basically far from the walls, I might get this, the result that basically C doesn't change with time to hold true, which makes sense, right? If I have a very, very deep slab, far from the wall which has a source of concentration, basically I will have concentration 0 for all time if I am sufficiently deep. So that's all this thing tells us. But if we want to know the behavior of the concentration close to the source, right, then I need to consider the boundary layer, where even if pi is large, there will still be some region very close to x equal to 0 where the concentration will be able to penetrate. So that's basically like a penetration length, right? Penetration length delta, let's say, or boundary layer. Right? And the way to estimate this we have already done before. I scale xc as this penetration length delta rather than capital H, because now capital H is something very large. Right? And if I do this and look at my problem again, I'll get delta square over T observation D right. Actually it's better if I mean in the limit that we are interested in, write it the other way around. Right, so I'll have dou C by dou T, non-dimensional, is equal to d by delta square. Right, and if we say that these two terms must be in balance, so delta should be so small that the diffusion term is important in the unsteady diffusion, then it must mean that delta square is basically the observation times d. which is dimensionally consistent, or delta square by h squared if I want to scale it with the overall depth, must be this by h squared, right? Or the relative boundary layer thickness is equal to square root of 1 by pi, where pi was a non-dimensional group. So this is something we've seen earlier. So this gives us an estimate of this delta, or the penetration depth for any given observation time. Let's focus on that on a moment. So let's just look at delta, forgetting h. So delta we are saying is equal to square root of t observation into this diffusivity. Okay, so the important thing to note here is that basically the penetration depth, right, is scaling as a square root of the time at which we are observing the system. But now in this infinitely deep problem, there is no other time scale, right? So if we think of the observation time as, let's say, the time for which we are basically running a simulation, right? Or let's say at t equal to 0, everywhere concentration is 0, and at t equal to 0 we bring the slab in contact with the source, or where the concentration is C0, and then we allow, as time progresses, we want to find how the concentration profile is varying. In that case, this t observation is just like the time of evolution of the system. And if we do that, then what this thing implies is that the characteristic length in the system is going as square root of time into the diffusivity. Right, so what it tells us is that lengths in the system, or the x coordinate, is varying as a square root of time. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that, let's say, again, I have C, and we know qualitatively that somehow the concentration is going to decay as I go into the slab. Right, and here this is C0, and we expect the concentration to decay. But the point is that this, after some later time, it will penetrate even more and even more. Okay, and what this tells us is that this length scale, xc, to which it's penetrating, is going to grow as the square root of time with a diffusivity constant. So that is one takeaway from this, but it's also a little deeper. So you remember, what we should keep in mind now is that if I look at the concentration profile, C of x versus time, right? At any given time, if I look at the concentration there, C of x, this scaling should apply to that point as well. Which means if the concentration was at some position x at a certain time, and if time increases, I expect the same concentration to be there at a larger x, which goes as a square root of time. And this scaling should apply throughout the entire concentration profile, not at any special point. The reason for this is that there is no real difference in any point x or at any time t, because this problem has no other scale, right? The only other length scale was h, but h is so large that it's basically infinitely large, right? Because that pi is so small that we are basically neglecting that length scale. So in that version of the problem, for all x much smaller than h, all these x's are equivalent. So this scale should hold throughout. This scaling should hold throughout for all x and for all time, within the regime of this, early penetration of the concentration. So it is this idea combined with the scaling of x versus root t, which actually suggests that we look for a self-similar solution. Right, so we would look for a self-similar solution. What does this mean? This means that instead of writing C as a function of x and time, I now know that every x, C at a given x at some time will be the same as C at some larger x at a larger time, and the x and time are related in a way that I know as the square root of t. So I can write this instead as some dependence on just eta, right, C tilde of eta, where eta is actually x upon square root of dt. So the idea is I'm able to replace x and time in terms of one variable, eta, which is called the self-similar variable. And this method of approaching a problem is called the similarity transformation. And you've done it earlier in your courses as a method of solving a problem in a semi-infinite domain. But now you see how it arises naturally from the physics of the problem in terms of scaling. Okay, so let's apply this now to our problem quickly and see if we can't derive a simplified solution to the problem. Alright, so we will now proceed with trying to derive this self-similar solution. So before that, let's just look at the boundary conditions and see if the boundary conditions are consistent with this thing. So the conditions we want to use now in this problem is we have again C at the initial time at all x is 0. We know C at any time at x equal to 0 is C naught, right? And we also know that so what we know, so earlier we had a no flux condition at the boundary h, but now we are interested in only in the boundary layer. So the h is basically going off to infinity. So what we say is that for any time if x tends to infinity, we expect the concentration also to die out. Sorry, the concentration to go to 0. So these are the kind of conditions we're going to use on our semi-infinite problem. And even though we are saying x tending to infinity, we know that the concentration is only going to really penetrate into the x domain up to a distance that depends on the square root of time. So if we wait for infinite time, it will eventually reach, but that would then take us in the regime where we consider the full unsteady problem and then eventually where we get the uniform profile, right? So we'll see all of it together later, but right now let's consider this near wall regime. So how do these boundary conditions translate after the similarity transformation? Well, they should be consistent with the new variable we have defined here, eta, and we will see that it is. So let's start here. For any finite time, if x is equal to 0, that's like saying C of eta is equal to 0 is just C naught. So if I non-dimensionalize it, it will just be equal to 1, right? If I non-dimensionalize concentration. On the other hand, C of eta going to infinity, which corresponds to x going to infinity or corresponds to t going to 0, is in both cases equal to 0. So you see that our boundary conditions are consistent with the similarity transformation. And this is again not a fluke. The fact that we obtained that scaling that told us that x goes as square root of time is a result of a boundary layer analysis. And such an analysis is applicable when there is no external length scale of relevance. So we are basically saying that the only length scale we had, which was the depth of the slab, is so large that it's not of relevance to our problem in the near field region. And in this boundary layer problem, there is no intrinsic, there is no externally imposed length scale. The only length scale that we have is internal to the problem, and that depends on the time. So the length and time of the problem is combined, are related to each other, and this happens only because there is no external length scale or no external time scale. If there was, then we would have chosen that and got a non-dimensional group as we did in the beginning. So this kind of similarity transformation works for such problems where there are no externally imposed length and time scales, because those length and time scales are so large that they are basically not relevant to the problem. So this is the connection between the similarity transformation method and essentially boundary layers or singular perturbations that arise naturally when you scale systems and look at these limits where basically you are in a boundary layer. Okay, anyway, so now let's just proceed with the math. This is something you would have already done before. So if I want to transform the problem, I have to transform it step by step. So instead of, for example, dou c by dou t, okay, so this is c tilde, I should put c hat here to represent a different functional form. Okay, so this can be the same as c hat by dou eta, right, dou eta by dou t, which is nothing but And now we take dou eta by dou t. If I do the usual stuff, I should get minus half. If the x will pop out, I'll get dt to the power minus 3 by 2. Right, that makes sense because it is x dt to the minus half and this half dt to the minus 3 by 2. X pops out, and of course I also get a d coming out from the dt inside the argument. Okay, similarly I have dou square c by dou x squared, right, which is, you can ultimately show is dou c hat by dou eta, dou square c hat by dou eta squared times dou eta by dou x. You'll get this factor out twice when you use the chain rule. And dou eta by dou x simply is right, it's just 1 over dt, so it will just be 1 over square root of dt squared, which is 1 over dt. Alright, so now I substitute this into the original equations where dc dt is equal to dou square c by dou x squared. And what you will see now, so the original equation was of course dou c by dou t with the diffusion coefficient, right? The so-called like unscaled equations for the moment, because I have not used any scale for x and time. So if I do this, now I can substitute in both sides. Yeah, I invite you to do the calculation along with me. Right, so you cancel this here, this minus 3 by 2 becomes minus half, right, so you get and you also had a d here, sorry, so that cancels with this d. So you have x by square root of dt, which was simply eta. Right, so in the final analysis, you have the following equation. Plus half eta dou c hat by dou eta is equal to 0 with the boundary conditions that we had here. If I can of course scale c hat by c naught, in which case if I scale c hat by c naught, I will get c hat is equal to c hat of 0 is equal to 1 and c hat of eta tending to infinity is 0. So you see I get a simple boundary value problem where the time has now been taken into the similarity variable, or x and time have been combined, and you can just solve this ODE instead of the PD. This is a linear equation, and as it turns out it has a simple solution, or rather solution in terms of a tabulated function, which is something you would have encountered before, I presume, the so-called error function. But even if you didn't have this, it's something that you could solve numerically in a more complex problem, but still it would be much easier than solving the full PD, right? So this solution, c hat, is actually 1 minus the so-called error function times eta by 2. Okay, where c is c hat is now the concentration by c naught, it's scaled, 1 minus eta by 2, and because we know what eta is, it's essentially, if we want to represent in terms of time, x by 2 root dt. Okay. So this actual 1 minus eta by 2, it has a typical form that looks something like this. It is just a decaying profile. It's not exponential, but though it has this error function form, and it starts from 1, which is the initial concentration, and then it decays in eta. And now the point is, the same value of eta will correspond to different values of x as time increases. So the larger time gets, x will also increase correspondingly to keep the value of eta the same. So it's basically like taking the profile at any given initial time gets taken and gets transformed or stretched outward corresponding to a similarity transformation, where the x position goes as square root of the current time, and that's how the profile is stretched. So in that sense it is self-similar, because the concentration profiles of C versus X at different times can all be collapsed into a master curve, which is essentially this given by error function eta by 2. So what this means is, if I had done an experiment and actually obtained C versus X at different times, at t1, t2, t3, I could transform them into a master curve by using this transformation eta as x by square root dt, and all these curves would collapse into a single curve. In that sense, these profiles are all self-similar. Now, such profiles can only be expected in your experiment for initial times, because if you wait very long, then the presence of the other boundary will start to influence the profile and destroy this self-similarity. But typically you'll encounter such things in problems where you have boundary layers, or where you have basically no other scales entering the problem and controlling the nature of the profile, because in that case the physics of the system itself determines the length scale and the time scale, and those are related to each other in such a way that leads to these kinds of similarity solutions. So the discussion here showed essentially how we came from the finite slab to the case of a semi-infinite slab in situations where the depth of the slab is very large compared to the diffusivity coefficient and the time of observation or the time of interest. And then we showed in the semi-infinite problem how the fact that the length scale is related to the time scale is able to suggest a similarity transformation, which leads to a self-similar solution. And this just connects this mathematical method of similarity transformations to the physics of the problem and to the method of scaling. Alright, so having shown that, I think it's now a good time for us to look at a few numerical simulations and to see how all of these things play out. Alright, so let's go to that now. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these numerical simulations. So what I've done is I've used a simple finite difference method for spatial discretization, and I've advanced in time using an explicit Runge-Kutta time stepping. So basically I've solved the equations numerically, and the solution is shown as a blue curve. At the same time, the self-similar analytical solution I obtained is shown by the red dashed curve. And what we will see is that right now at time t equal to 0, like I said, through most of the domain the concentration is 0. And there is just some penetration. This is not exactly 0, it's 0.0001. So there is some penetration of concentration into the material. The concentration at the wall is C0. In scale form it's 1. And x is scaled by the depth of the slab. So based on our understanding, the self-similar regime should hold whenever h square, remember, was much less than the time times the diffusivity. So basically for early times, when the concentration hasn't penetrated much compared to the depth and the time is small compared to the diffusion time h square over d, in that case I should expect the self-similar solution to hold, because that's the limit in which I derived it. But you will see that as time progresses and as the time scale here, which is shown, the time which is shown on top relative to the diffusion time starts to approach 1, you will see that the presence of the other wall will be felt, and we will depart from the self-similar solution. So you can see this happening. Let's pause it there for a moment and go step by step. So you see that at early times, as it proceeds, it's exactly overlapping with the self-similar solution. So the blue line is a numerical simulation, the red dots are the self-similar analytical solution we derived using the error function. And you see that it's a great prediction even when it reaches half the slab depth. But the time compared to diffusion time is still much smaller. So this T by Td, if this T is T observation, then T by Td is basically our value of pi, right, or 1 over pi. This is 1 over pi, so 1 over pi is 0.01. We can still neglect that term, and this boundary layer analysis works quite well. But now you see, once you start reaching the outer wall, which is around 0.1, you start seeing significant deviations between the self-similar solution and the true solution. That's because, of course, the self-similar solution is going on till infinity and doesn't sense this other wall. So the problem now is the self-similar solution no longer holds, because the condition under which we did it, which was that h square is much larger than the time into the diffusivity, is no longer true. Right? In fact, it's now 0.1, it's not very small, so you can start seeing a deviation. And now as the time approaches the diffusion time, you see increasingly we approach the state of a uniform concentration profile, in which case, of course, the self-similar solution is completely invalid now. The important thing to note here is that you see, as we start approaching a uniform concentration profile, which is relevant to problems related to the thermometer and the fin and so on, you can see that to a very good approximation, the diffusion time is a great estimate, right? So when when T approaches the diffusion time of around 1, we almost have a completely uniform concentration profile. So Td, or which is h square by d, the diffusion time, really is a very good estimate for the time it takes for the concentration to become uniform in a slab of given thickness. And if you're much less than that diffusion time, then you're in a boundary layer regime where the concentration is restricted to some boundary layer, and there it's well predicted by a self-similar solution. So both limits can be obtained analytically, the early time limit and then the very long time limit, where it's trivially just a uniform concentration and we know the estimate of that time to be Td. And in between times where T is less than Td but not very small, then you can't use a self-similar solution. For example, times like this, nor is it uniform concentration. That's where we have to actually solve the unsteady problem, and typically one would have to do it numerically, as I have done here. And this would be relevant, for example, for the frying problem. So you might want to wait, let's say, till the core of the temperature is somewhere around half C0, and then you'll flip your patty so that you can do the other side. But to correctly predict the temperature somewhere in the core, the self-similar solution may not be enough at later times, right? Because very quickly the effect of the other wall is felt, the collection of material at the no-flux wall. So now if you want to predict the temperature at 0.5, you will have inaccuracies if you don't account for the other wall, which we do in the numerical simulation. Okay, the next slide shows you, just focuses on the early time, so you can just better appreciate the correspondence between the self-similar solution and the full numerical simulation, provided the times are small. So you see that the evolution of the system is just obeying a stretching law, which is a similarity transformation, and it's just one profile that is in which x and t are being stretched in a way that x goes as square root of time. Okay, the next stage in our progression on diffusion problems is to now consider what happens in the same slab if I introduce a simple linear reaction term. Okay, so let's return to the chalkboard. And now we will consider the same unbounded problem, semi-infinite problem. So basically we are considering a situation again where the time is sufficient, so small that the concentration is still penetrating in the boundary layer.